It's a boat about to run out of steam. The Mamie S Barrett, a stern wheel towboat nearing her 100th birthday, rots and rusts in a field overlooking the Mississippi River. Now, at one point in history, it carried around a president. Now it's unclear if the vessel has an owner. Jacob Kittilstad boards the ship that's pretty much sunk this Mystery Monday.
She's tethered to a tree, but there's little risk she'll float away if it floods. The Mamie S Barrett, for the last 15 years, has rested on this spot at a Deer Park, Louisiana campsite. Slowly, but also quickly, the dinosaur is decaying. Rust peels off paint like shedding scales. Giant paddle wheel pieces snap under a canopy of creeping leaves and its only creeping passengers.
I doubt very seriously they'll ever float that again. You could probably about put your foot through that hole anywhere you want to kick it real hard.
I met Captain William N. Winders Jr. by chance. He was waiting to catch a ride to his boat with Marquette Transportation. He says he remembers the day the Mamie floated downriver this way.
We all wondered for years what happened to it, and then I finally asked one of the guys up there, and they told they brought it in here and we're going to make a restaurant out of it, but I see that never happened.
Her hull size is 145 feet by 30 feet by 5 feet. That makes her a pretty middle-of-the-road vessel, except for a few upgrades, including a bathtub and an elevator. They're not here anymore, but why were they installed? A visit by FDR done in 1942 for the inspection of the Mississippi River. He probably sat right above where I'm standing right now.
This area was their observation area, so it's had quite a history. I was living here when it was a restaurant here. I have went out and ate on it.
Lamar Roberts, director of Vicksburg's Old Depot Museum,
This is the paddle wheel. It's a stern wheeler.
says this model depicts the boat that would take many names and have many homes. He also says the last owner of the Mamie was the town of Rosedale, Mississippi. However, the Historic Sternwheeler Preservation Society reports the town no longer claims the liability of owning the vessel.
The current condition is I guess for lack of a better word, it's been desecrated. It's in terrible shape. Howard Steamboat Museum was interested in taking it and restoring it. Most of the restoration work would have to be done right where it's sitting.
But that takes money, and no one's come forward. Waiting, she's been tagged by vandals and welcomed bees to take the place of barnacles, all while keeping watch of the river she lived for.
They do that. They fill them full of foam. That way it makes no difference.
Using controls modern captains can only imagine.
You're operating boilers in August, and it's 110 degrees outside. It's 160 degrees in the engine room, and the engineers got to be right there.
There are very few steamboats that's been preserved. And if there's a chance to preserve this one, it should be preserved.
Exploring the unexplained on Mystery Monday, Jacob Kittilstad, WJTV News Channel 12.
All right, thank you very much, Jacob. The Mamie was inducted into the National Register of Historic Places all the way back in 1983.
This is WJTV News Channel 12 at 6.
Concentration camps. People mostly associate the term with Nazi Germany, but historians say it's true. They also existed in America. During the Civil War, authorities in Natchez, Mississippi forced tens of thousands of freed slaves into camps built in what's known as the Devil's Punchbowl. Jacob Kittilstad explores this forgotten history this Mystery Monday.
Untouched fruit falls to the ground near the banks of the Mississippi River.
They talk about there's the most beautiful wild peach groves down in the Punchbowl.
And researcher Paula Westbrook says, like a peach, the area known as the Devil's Punchbowl has a pit, a mass grave from the 1860s. Historians estimate that in 1 year, up to 20,000 freed slaves died in contraband camps below these bluffs.
When the slaves were released from the plantations during the occupation, they overran Natchez, and the population went from about 10,000 to 120,000 overnight.
So they decided to build an encampment for them at Devil's Punchbowl, which they walled off and wouldn't let them out.
Don Estes is the former director of the Natchez City Cemetery.
I just put my own tombstone right there. You see Estes?
Learning history's been his life. He says Union troops ordered recaptured black men to perform hard labor.
Straight down right here.
While women and children were all but left to die in the 3 Punchbowl prisons.
Disease broke out among them, smallpox being the main one, and thousands died. They were begging to get out, turn me loose and I'll go home back to the plantation, anywhere but there. But they wouldn't let them out.
The Union Army did not allow them to remove the bodies from the camp. They just gave them shovels and said, bury them where they drop.
And I'd really like to show you more of this terrain, but it's just too thick with greenery. These bluffs are also straight down, so not only is it dangerous to navigate, it's still very mysterious back there.
It's a bed of alligators and snakes. It would take Indiana Jones to get back in there at this point.
Then you come on up washing away bluffs, and the Devil's Punchbowl that has so many people that no one knows how they got killed or when, and they're still down there wasted.
And even to this day, they talk about wild peach trees that come up down there, but no one in Natchez will eat them because they know what the fertilizer was.
Exploring the unexplained on Mystery Monday, Jacob Kittilstad, WJTV News Channel 12.
And historians say even now, people might discover old skeletal remains after flooding on the Mississippi. But being on the Natchez Trace, sometimes it's difficult to tell which century those bones are from.
And welcome back. There's no cross on the wall, no banners or song listings. What there is at the now defunct Presbyterian Church in Rodney, Mississippi is a ball, a cannonball, wedged into the wall and stopped only God knows how. Jacob Kittilstad searches out the site of the Civil War standoff this Mystery Monday.
For short, it's called a 12-pound Napoleon. But to get technical, it's actually
the model 1857 United States Light Field Howitzer gun.
Jake Cook is a guide at the Vicksburg National Military Park.
The tube itself weighs 1,230 pounds.
He says he knows the power of Civil War artillery.
This would fire a solid shot accurately about a mile. There's an account from multiple battles of troops that see one bouncing towards them. Looks like it's not going fast at all, so they stick out a foot and try to stop it. But there's so much spin going on with it, it'll take their foot right off.
But in the tiny town of Rodney, a place nearly voted capital of the Mississippi Territory,
that measure was defeated by 3 votes.
Mike Webb, a war reenactor, says the physics of this cannonball collision must have went perfectly wrong on September 13th, 1863.
The USS Rattler, which was a Union gunboat, would have been posted here to maintain federal control, and the Admiral has forbade anyone to leave the ship, any of the Union soldiers, but apparently some of the Union soldiers had little girlfriends, lady friends here in Rodney, and some of the officers joined them in, and they all put on their Sunday dress uniforms and came to church.
Historical accounts say Confederate troops took the churchgoers as prisoners. The Union gunboat responded by bombarding the church, leaving this blemish on its facade.
The last pastor at this church resigned all the way back in 1923. Now, some photos do exist of this church from the 1930s, but they don't show that ball stuck up there in the bricks. So what happened? Well, historians say that neighbors replaced the ball at some point in history so that people around here would always remember the impact that the Civil War had on Rodney.
At one time, it was the largest and busiest port between New Orleans and St. Louis. The river changed course and wound up 3 miles away, and then the influences of the war, it was just a death blow for the...
The church, however, would avoid complete destruction.
The Confederate officer sent word to the boat that if they did not cease and desist, that they would indeed kill the people that they had in custody, and that kind of brought a quietus to it there until they were able to, iron things out.
Iron things out in a way that didn't actually involve more iron.
Really devastating to be on the receiving end, obviously.
Exploring the unexplained on Mystery Monday, Jacob Kittilstad, News Channel 12.
And magnify that by about 200 times.
Military Park tour guides say that the artillery can put wide holes through just about anything, including stone walls. A good cannon team during the time could fire off 3 rounds a minute.